In 1933, the United States was in the midst of the greatest economic disaster in our history. And along with the Great Depression, Adolf Hitler was just named Chancellor of Germany. Our 32nd President, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, had just taken office with a New Deal and fireside chats. Baseball was America's pastime. You could hear Lou Gehrig beat Everett Scott's record on the radio for most consecutive games. We had the first all-star baseball game during the World's Fair in Chicago, and the first drive-in theater opened, and the world was buzzing over the sighting of the Loch Ness Monster in Scotland. Ironically, 1933 was the year we ended prohibition in the United States. It was the end of a lot of gang wars, speakeasies, and dangerous homemade liquors. But it was the year we got our man. On June 13, 1933, Harold Milton Besant was born in Little River, South Carolina, son of Bill and Frances Ellis Besant. She died shortly after giving birth, which was not uncommon in the early 20th century, especially rural South Carolina. Sadly, his father took his sister Betty, left the area, and started a new family elsewhere, leaving little Harold to be handed around from family to family during his childhood. As you can imagine, Little River and surrounding areas were barely surviving with small fishing fleets and poor farming conditions. Nonetheless, through it all, Harold managed to make his way through Little River Elementary, Wampie Junior, and Wampie High School. There, he met his lifelong friend and brother. Yes, he finally had a family. Buddy Owens, a classmate, simply went to his father, Pappy, who owned the local drugstore, and asked if his friend Harold could come live with them. The Owens family welcomed them in. They were brothers, thick and thin. They even attempted to further their education together and headed into another world, upstate South Carolina's Clemson Agricultural College, which we now know as Clemson University. After 1 year of school, club basketball, and college football, the young Mr. Besant flunked military science. Frustrated, he and Buddy both quit their former military institution. To prove a point or to save face, they signed up to become Marines in the dawn of the Korean War under the buddy system. After 3 months of hell in Paris Island, a place where Mr. Harold would later say, "I prayed for 3 months. I'm not lying. I wouldn't take $1 million for what I'd gotten from Paris Island, but I wouldn't take $1 million to go back." After boot camp, he and Buddy were stationed at Camp Lejeune, just outside of Jacksonville, North Carolina, where the two boys would frequent Robert's Pavilion on the Odie oceanfront, back and forth from North Myrtle Beach to Jacksonville to check out the new shack dance and jukebox noise blaring this new race or black music with cold beer and ladies on the weekends. Soon, it was time to ship. From there, they traveled the world. The two boys had finagled the system to where they were paid on alternate weeks of each other, so they would always have spending money to throw around in Switzerland, Greece, Italy, and especially France. There, the kids were on an American R&B kick and diving into the U.S. culture. They would get American beer, Seagram's VO, Pretty Ladies, and Earl Bostick on the jukebox. But back home, there was a storm brewing. At 9:45 a.m. on October 15, 1954, Hurricane Hazel arrived as a Category 4 storm, packing 140-mile-an-hour winds and hitting right at the South Carolina-North Carolina line, wrecking nearly every coastal building from Georgetown to Wilmington, and thousands of people left homeless and almost 100 killed. After rebuilding, the new pavilion just wasn't the same with the local teens and young adults. However, Mr. Blackship in North Myrtle Beach took over the downstairs of an old rooming house across the street, which was equipped with 3 old bathtubs for beer and garden hoses for plumbing. This was the pad. When their tour in Southern Europe was done, the boys, Harold and Buddy, returned to their station in North Carolina and again started traveling weekends to Ocean Drive to the all-new pad. But when their military service was done in 1956, Buddy returned to Horry County and Harold ventured to Florida taking on various jobs, marrying his first wife, Mary, and adopting 2 children, David and Laura. When the marriage didn't work out, Harold and his 2 young children headed home to Little River in 1958. At this time, Harold operated small beach clubs like the one in Crescent Beach called Tootin' and Tellin', and then the RVA, or better known as the Regular Veterans Association. It was in 1961 that Buddy and Pappy started the Spanish Galleon and asked Harold to join in. This is where what we know today all began. Harold Besant, Buddy Owens, Captain Pooh, Kenny Hardy, and Harold Worley, they were the Musketeers. They were the ones throwing the party. This was the start of a brand new lifestyle that we would all eventually call our own. Yep, from 1961 to 1980, this was the place to be. North Myrtle Beach will never be the same with the Galleon, Fat Jacks, the Pad, and so much more. This is a party that just couldn't be stopped. Even with the riot of '68, it wasn't even race-related. It was said that it was over a girl from Laurinburg, North Carolina. Go figure. Harold would marry again unsuccessfully, but would be given a daughter biologically, Mary Ellen. In 1980, Harold took over the Pad and opened Harold's across the street. And later, the first Fat Harold's in the ocean in the place of Fat Jack's till its demise. Then, in 1993, they tore down the Pad. Looking for a new place landed the Fat Man at 212 Main Street. It will become the mecca of beach and shag till this day. Housing and hosting more events than all the other clubs in history combined, this Taj Mahal of beach would found the DJ Hall of Fame, the Keepers of the Dance, and after his ties with his grandchild dying from cancer, this organization will become one of the, if not the largest contributors of Camp Chemo. In the 1980s and 90s, franchising would begin from Harold's on the Ocean, affectionately known as Hodo's, to the 19th Hole and Harold's in Little River. But you haven't really been to the beach until you saw the Fat Man on the first stool of the main bar at Fat Harold's Beach Club. This became the focal point, the center of the beach music shag universe. Only the best dancers hit the floor, the best DJs in the booth, and the cream of the crop bands on stage. It's what made Main Street, North Myrtle Beach, famous like Bourbon, Bill, and Broadway. From the early days of the original beach bums, the KMA, the lifeguards, to today's SOSers, there has been a constant light that has led us all the way. He was a leader that came from humble beginnings where no one would claim him to having more friends than Facebook would even allow. Fat Harold Milton Besant left us on May 22, 2015, after fighting serious medical issues for nearly a decade. He left behind a family larger than life itself. There must be a sense of duty that we are to all endure after being in the presence of such greatness. To have known this man is self-empowering enough to want to keep his dream alive. That message given not of just good times, but goodness. We all know right from wrong, but do we always do right? We are now in charge. We must continue to be the keepers of the dance, the society of strangers, the knights of many activities, the carers and the givers. While the rest of the world has gone through phases and changes, we as our own community have held strong and steadfast and growing legions of dancers, listeners, followers. Hear me now. We have a home. The Fat Man built it. I'll meet you at the house to reminisce over a cold beer and a fried bologna sandwich.